All right, well, all done with the lamp. I decided not to show you all the ins and outs of me doing all of the random wiring and stuff. Figure I'd just show you the final product at the end of a video. So what I ended up doing, got the flywheel and the crankshaft all nice and clean, clear coated that with just some Rust-Oleum clear coat. So that won't rust or anything after I gave it a good bath and brake clean, etc. So I think that looks really good. Then put the flange down there, drill a hole through the piece of wood. That's just a piece of pine that I've gone ahead and drilled through the bottom. We'll put felt pads on the bottom of it, and the power cord comes out through the bottom of that hole in the flange. Wire runs up, comes out here, and then there's a switch. What I did on this bushing right here, or this flare, whatever I'm going to call it, it's a half to 3/4, 3/4 to 1 inch, 1 inch to 1 1/4. So this would be a 1 1/4. I went ahead and just drilled out for a pull switch, and when you pull the switch, the light comes on. And so I've just got that sitting in there. All the wiring is in here. Wiring got a little busy right in this area right here. Still don't have a good way to anchor the light fixture in there. Still working on that a little bit. Might play around with a couple things with regards to that. What I should have done is I should have brought this nipple up and then put just a close, like 2-inch long piece of 1 inch in here, and that the wiring would be better suited to fit in there. Mostly because I had to, I've got some heat shrink joints, some butt splices and stuff in there to wire everything together. So it is extremely busy in this area right here with wiring. But overall, I really like the looks of it. It's just being held down by 4 bolts. Recess those in the bottom of the board. They're about level. And then the flange is held down with 4 screws. Overall, I think it turned out really nice. Put it in my office, and you know, I don't think I'll leave that light bulb in it. Probably put one of those like Art Deco LED lights. We've got some in our kitchen. Might try that out. Put a little shade. I think I'm just going to put like one of those little topper shades on it that fits across the light bulb on top of it, and that will be it. And I can use it for various lighting. You know, you can go 8 million different ways with these things. Kind of cool using some of the stuff I had on hand. All of this brass I actually had on hand. A couple of the black iron fittings I also had on hand. So then at the same time I bought some other stuff. So the most challenging part of the whole thing was getting the height right on this supporting piece of pipe. So this was a 6-inch nipple on here, and to get that right, at the same time get the wire run. So basically you had to deal with a height issue here based on how deep it was screwed in. So you had to get this set, and then you had to run the wire. So that was a little bit of a challenge, but overall, you know, pretty, I don't know, probably got 6 or 7 hours in this, and I think it looks really good. Kind of a cool conversation piece. So I'll lump this video in with a couple other things, and we will go from there. All right, so I need some input on this 140 project here. Got a couple different ways I can proceed, and I'm open for suggestions. So this is a 1969 140. It has the old style transaxle in it. The gears are a little bit loud in it, which that's nothing to be shocked about. It has the 16 horsepower Kohler. Kohler seems to run, single cylinder Kohler, seems to run pretty well. The steering on it needs to be repaired. If I'm going to put a loader on a machine, so if I'm going to finish that loader that I have, that I bought with this, that go in the brackets right there, I've got a couple different ways to proceed, and I will go through my options. I can either buy a used or new old stock, probably used, 140 steering column, stick it in there. That requires a significant amount of disassembly and time, but I will have a system then that works. I could take the loader mounts off, modify a 318, stick a 20 horsepower Onan that I have sitting on a pallet in a 318, so I have two 318 frames, and I could use the mounts, and I kind of really like the grates that are on this thing, and put that loader on a 318. The nice thing is regardless of what I end up doing, the loader should fit the machine regardless of what I do. Or the third option is I could take and put power steering on this 140 from a 318. Many moons ago, I had a 1969 140 with power steering on it. Power steering system had been taken from a 318. That requires a significant amount of modifications, disassembly, reassembly, welding, hydraulics, etc., etc. That will take me the most time, and that is the least likely to get done in any reasonable time frame for a project for me. The one most likely to get done is going to be replacing just the steering column. The second most likely to get done is going to be putting it on a 318. Now, I would have to do a lot of measuring and everything before I could put it on a 318, that loader anyway. But then that leaves me the 140 that I need to get rid of. These tires would go on the 318 in the end. So your thoughts on those three options would be greatly appreciated. This 140 doesn't really have that many other issues per se, other than the steering that I've been able to find, a little loud on the transaxle. I'm not unopposed to putting a power steering in a 140 from a 318. Lots of folks have done it. I think it can be done. It's just a matter of, okay, how much time do you want to invest in doing it? So, give me your thoughts. Let me know what you think I should do. Realize that the more involved the fabrication is, the less likely it's going to get done. So that's just something to consider. And I'll actually take you to the back of the shop and show you one of the 318 frames. So this is the 318 frame that it would most likely go on. Basically, have to cut out, you'd have to get rid of the brakes. That is one thing you would have to get rid of, so it would no longer have split brakes, which is somewhat disappointing. Now I could extend the loader out past the brakes, but that would require substantial modification of what's already been done. So remove the brakes and then, or modify the brakes in some form or fashion. Don't know how I would do that. And then cut out the fender pan and then put the loader mounts on. That's one option. This 318 frame should be fine. Had an engine in it for a while. I tried to sell this thing. The engine started having some issues, and rather than fix it, I decided I'd just rip the engine out. In fact, the engine's sitting over here on a pallet. I'll show you it next. Yes, we will eventually get to the 88 318 and the valve job on that. So I've got a couple different options for engines. Most likely it will be that one right there. That is a P220, I believe. Yeah, Performer 20. So this is a P220 that I got out of a 420. Needs a little bit of cleaning, things along those lines, but it runs really well from what I remember. And so that's a possibility right there. That engine is going to go to parts. That engine doesn't have a home at the moment. Really kind of don't know what I want to do with it. It's got really good compression. This is the one that I can't figure out what's wrong with it. It just doesn't run right. Just period doesn't run right. Like that, there's nothing really indicating a diagnosis for that. So, but yeah, give me your thoughts. Let me know more in-depth thoughts if you have them. So with that 140 loader projects. Thanks. Figured I would give an update on this X485. I have been working on it off and on for the last couple weeks, and I think last time there was a video of it, it was in the shed, not the shop, in the main shop here. Did a whole bunch of tests for all the fuel system and everything, and I'm looking for my paperwork here. Oh, there it is over there. Gotta get this washing machine out of here too. So went through a whole bunch of tests according to the manual, spec'd out all of the so the vacuum sensor, the pressure sensor, the temperature sensor, did all of that, and basically and I tested the ignition control module, and the only thing that was out of spec was this vacuum sensor. I believe they're supposed to be like what do you say, like 5 point something volts, and it said I had 11 volts with it on. So, and it says if it's out of the range, you should replace it. So I replaced it. So I found the switch, 100 and some odd bucks, and replaced that sensor, and it still runs as crappy as it did before. So I really don't know exactly what is wrong with this stupid thing. Sometimes it's running on both cylinders on occasion, which lends itself to a spark plug issue or something like that. But I went back and looked, and the spark plugs were new, and they both have spark. So I thought a little bit more, and I was like, well, maybe it's the fuel pump. I tested the fuel pump. The fuel pump tests fine. There doesn't appear to be any problems with it. And I pulled it out of the tank. This is the second time I pulled it out of the tank. I can't find anything wrong with it. It's not clogged, nothing. We have good fuel flow, the whole 9 yards. So I don't think it's a fuel pump anymore. So I'm just crossing things off the list one at a time. But what it does is it starts up, and it runs for just a second, and then it acts like it's starving for gas and shuts off. The fuel filter has been replaced. Like I said, I've tested the fuel flow. So this leads me back to my original thought that this is electrical. And if you start looking at the wiring harness, some idiot has gotten here and wire nutted a fuse in here when there should be no fuse. And anytime you're using wire nuts on a machine like this, I think you're half crazy to start with, because all they're going to do is vibrate loose. And then when you come over to this side, and I'm not familiar enough with these electrical systems on these older X series tractors. You've got this 10 amp fuse here that has been spliced in, and that does not look like a factory original splice to me, at least. So there's been some electrical hack jobs that have gone on in this thing at some point in time, which leads me to believe that this is a strictly electrical problem that I am probably never going to solve in any shape or form. The only problem is I need to solve it so I know what parts are good and what parts are bad. So I've gone through all the fuses, I've checked all the relays, I've checked all the electrical connections, and I just cannot figure out what's wrong with it. Like I said, it starts up, it runs for just a second, and then it shuts off. Somebody suggested a coolant, this coolant switch right here, or maybe it's this one over here. Can't remember which one it is, but anyway, I think this one's the coolant. Tested that, specs out fine. Yeah, this is quite the brain scratcher. Nothing that is wrong with it makes any sense. So what I'm going to do is I am going to go ahead and put the fuel pump back in the tank and let it run, and I'll start it up on video, and y'all can provide me some of your feedback on what you think it might be. I think I've crossed everything off the list. I really don't have a desire to throw any more money at this thing. But at the same time, I need to hear it run before I can, or else I'm just going to have to take it down to its individual components, which is something I don't want to do. I would prefer to sell the engine whole, things like that. But yeah, let me put the fuel pump back in and we'll go from there. Alright, so here's what it does. Fuel pump comes on like it should, pressurizes the system. Oops. That's a new symptom. And it does that every time, which tells me there's a fuel problem. Injectors test out fine. They are new injectors. I did not replace them. The dealership that I bought this thing from did. I have the old injectors. I forgot to say, I have adjusted the valves properly, or I have checked the valves, and the valves seem perfectly fine. I've checked spark. Yeah, I just don't, that's so weird. Do it one more time. And you can make it run a little bit longer if you hold it. And you can hear it's running, well, it was. It's running on both cylinders. And so your guess is as good as mine. I'm going to have to do some more reading on this thing, and it's really aggravating. But yeah, I don't know what's wrong, because there's no... That's the service minder, and it goes off, so there's no warning lights or anything else or anything like that. It's just there. So that's what I got. That's what I've been working on this 485. I'll keep poking away at it, and we'll see if we can get it fixed. If not, tear it apart, because I know I got a good $100 pressure switch, and you know, a couple other good parts. Got a transaxle that works. I have driven it a little bit with that loping engine, but we'll get it figured out.